In the coming days, police surrounded the widow's house as her dead husband lay unburied, and they wouldn't allow us to see her. We've been trying to get in there, we've been refused several times, and now we're going to have another go. The police were a little slow off the mark. Hello, ni hao, come on. We do need Dean. Yeah, we need Dean. Yeah. We've got into Mrs. Lee's house. We've got past the police cordon, but now our translator is outside and he's been stopped by them. We found Mrs. Lee keeping vigil for her dead husband. She was clinging on with her disabled son as the developers waited to pounce. The police refused to let our translator in, so Mrs. Lee had to come out. Just tell the world what you're going through, Mrs. Lee. She said she'd been about to hold the funeral when the police surrounded her home. As she told us her story, the police dragged our translator away. And ask her to tell us, what is this all about? Why are they doing this to her? She told the police she wouldn't go ahead with the funeral with them laying down the rules. The senior police officer had threatened her, saying more members of her family would die. Okay. I think that we should leave. We should leave because obviously this is going to create more problems for Mrs. Lee. So with a great deal of sorrow, Mrs. Lee, good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. Presumably she can come and talk to us, can't she? It seemed not. There was nothing political about Mrs. Lee's campaign. All she wanted was to have the ownership of her home respected. She hadn't broken any laws, but the police still wanted her silenced. The police refused to talk to us, so we went to ask the developers, New World China Land, why Mrs. Lee was being mistreated. Down there, we wanted to get a public relations officer. Just then, the head of evictions turned up. Yeah, we want to talk about the redevelopment around Zone 6. We've got various questions. Right away, he asked our translator if we were there about Mrs. Lee's case. Is it true that you've threatened Mrs. Lee and her husband before he died? He now told us he'd never had any contact with Mrs. Lee. But what about in June? Your men went to you began knocking the house down in June. He warned us to switch off the camera, threatening to have 10 security guards confiscate our equipment. Yeah. We went to the authorities looking for answers, but local government, the mayor and the Olympic organisers said they knew nothing about forced evictions. As we were about to leave Beijing, we heard the authorities were increasing their efforts to round up petitioners. We got a tip-off about a black jail, so called because officially it doesn't exist. We're outside a hotel on the outskirts of Beijing where we hear that people are being held illegally. They're petitioners from outlying provinces and they're being held here before being bussed back to their home areas. No TV crew has filmed inside one of China's black jails before. Days before our visit, a print journalist had been forcibly ejected from here. Right, these appear to be petitioners. And they're being held here, obviously, behind a gate. At first, the guards seemed bemused and did nothing to stop us. They're being held against their will. They confirm that they're being held against their will. This woman said she wanted to be let out. Yeah? The inmates showed us a woman they said had been beaten. Others were disabled. They strangled and beat me, this man said. They pointed, saying, "These are the thugs who beat us."
Okay. What are the conditions like? The conditions here are obviously terrible. They've got either 20 or 30 people in a room. This is an illegal detention center. Yeah. Okay. Now we're being manhandled away. Okay. What I need to know is, why have you locked them up? 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 When under Chinese law, petitioners are allowed to file their applications in Beijing. These people say that they've been beaten. Are you beating people? Are you torturing people?
He said they were told by the Beijing authorities to deal with the petitioners.
All right, these people are being muscled away. They are locked behind this gate. Some of them say they've been held here for weeks in totally bestial conditions. 20 or 30 people to a room. The officials say that they have been ordered by the authorities to pick them up. But why have you been ordered to pick them up?
Suddenly, the security boss appeared and began shouting and pushing us away. He's the director, they said. He's in charge.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Show me your ID. What's he saying? What's he saying? Yeah, I need to know who he is.
In the struggle that followed, guards roughed us up, broke our camera, then tried to lock us up. We called the police, but when they arrived, they arrested and held us for 6 hours. Officers from Beijing's police headquarters showed no interest in investigating the Black Jail. We were only released when they thought we destroyed the footage you're now watching.
Next Friday at 7:30, Unreported World is in northern Iraq, where the Kurds are quietly consolidating their hold on oil. Next tonight, setting up a business against the stunning backdrop of Snowdonia, or succumbing to the breathtaking beauty of Brittany, a place in the sun, home or away.